I think that success is a process. And I believe that my first Easter speech in the Kosciuszko Baptist Church at the age of 3.5 was the beginning. And that every other speech, every other book I read, every other time I spoke in public was a building block. So that by the time I first sat down to audition in front of a television camera and somebody says, read this, what allowed me to read it so comfortably and be so at ease with myself at that time was the fact that I'd been doing it a while. If I'd never read a book or I'd never spoken in public before, I would have been traumatized by it. So the fact that we went on the air with the Oprah Winfrey Show in 1986 nationally, and people say, oh, but you're so comfortable in front of the camera, you can be yourself. Well, it's because I've been being myself since I was 19. And I would not have been able to be as comfortable with myself had I not made mistakes on the air and been allowed to make mistakes on the air and understand that it doesn't matter. There's no such thing to me as an embarrassing moment. No such thing. If I tripped and fell, if my bra strap showed, if my slip fell off, if I fell flat on my face, there's no such thing as an embarrassing moment, because I know that there is not a moment that I could possibly experience on the air that somebody else hasn't already experienced. So when it happens, you say, oh, my slip fell off. And it's no big deal. I mean, like, I was on TV the other day and somebody says, oh, Oprah, you have a run. Have you not seen a run before in your life? Well, I get them too, let me tell you. So, I mean, I can't be embarrassed. I can't be embarrassed. Now, when I first started out, that was not true, because I was pretending to be somebody I was not. I was pretending to be Barbara Walters. So I'd go to a news conference and I was more interested in how I phrased the question and how eloquent the question sounded, as opposed to listening to the answer. Which always happens when you're interested in impressing people instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing. And it took me a while. It took me messing up on the air during a live newscast. I was doing a list of foreign countries, and there was all these foreign names, and then Canada was thrown in, and I called Canada, Canada. And I got so tickled that I called Canada. I go, that wasn't Canada, that was Canada. Excuse me, that wasn't Canada, that wasn't Canada, that was Canada. And then I started laughing. Well, it became the first real moment I ever had. And the news director later said to me, well, if you do that, then you should just keep going. You shouldn't correct yourself and let people know. Well, I know, well, who's ever heard of Canada? So that was, for me, the beginning of realizing that, oh, you can laugh at yourself and you can make a mistake, and it's not the end of the world. You don't have to be perfect. And biggest lesson for me for television, because then it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Oh, sorry, bra strap showing. I only came to co-host a talk show because I had failed at news and I was going to be fired. And the news director was paying me $22,000 a year. God only knows what my co-anchor was making. But was paying me $22,000 a year, and they thought they were paying me too much money to only just do news stories. And so I'd been taken off the 6 o'clock news and was put on the early morning, like 5:30 cut-ins, and they tried to convince me at the time. They said, you're so good that you need your own time period. So we're going to give you 5 minutes at 5:30 in the morning. And I was devastated, because up until that point, I'd sort of cruised. I really hadn't thought a lot about my life or the direction it was taking. Because I'd happened into television, happened into radio, sort of happenstanced. I don't believe in luck. I think luck is preparation meeting opportunity, but I felt like I had somewhat prepared myself, but that I had happenstanced into it. So I thought, okay, I was working in Nashville, and so I moved to Baltimore, and then I'll do this for a while, and then I don't know what I'll do. And so when I was called in and put on the edge of being fired, and certainly demoted, and knew that firing was only a couple weeks away, I was like devastated. I was 22, and I mean, embarrassed by the whole thing, because I'd never failed before. And it was that failure that led to the talk show, because they had no place else to put me. They put me on a talk show one morning. And I'm telling you, the hour I interviewed, my very first interview was the Carvel ice cream man and Benny from All My Children. Never forget it. And I came off the air thinking, this is what I should have been doing, because it was like breathing to me, like breathing. You just talk. Be yourself is really what I've learned to do. And so from the very first day I did my very first talk show, I knew it. I knew it was the right thing to do. I felt the same thing about acting too, only I was so terrified that it was a little more difficult for me. For me, the turn on in acting, the turn on is the ability to express another person's life. I think if you can internalize and then manifest externally the essence of another being, that is the ultimate in understanding. What it takes to take somebody else's life, make it your own, and put it out there. It's the ultimate. You understand things about people that you could never imagine. It's like almost for a while getting to live somebody else's life without having to experience all of the experience that comes with creating another life. Quincy Jones had, I would not even say an important role, I would say the role in my acting career. Quincy Jones discovered me. And it's so interesting to me because when I was working as a television newswoman in Baltimore, and really all I wanted to do was be an actress, but I was doing television, and I felt at the time, well, I can't quit this job because this is what everybody else wants to do. And if I quit this job, what am I going to do? And I was going to a speech coach at the time that the station had sent me to. The broadcasting school, they sent everybody to the same woman. And I was telling her, I really don't want to do this. What I really want to do is act. And she says, my dear, you don't want to act, because if you wanted to act, you'd be doing it. What you want to be, my dear, is a star. Because if you wanted to act, you'd be waiting tables in New York. And I thought, now why am I going to wait tables if I'm already working in TV? So I said, well, what I think is going to happen is I will be discovered, because I want it so badly. Somebody's going to have to discover me. And she said, you just dream. You dream, you're a dreamer. So when it happened, I called her up. I said, you will not believe this. I got discovered. And it really was a discovery. It's like one of those Lana Turner stories, only it wasn't a drugstore. He was in his hotel room. Saw me on TV. It was unbelievable. So the interesting thing about that is that I truly believe that thoughts are the greatest vehicle to change power and success in the world. Everything begins with thoughts. I mean, the chairs that we're sitting in, the room that we're in, all started because somebody thought it. So I thought up The Color Purple for myself. I know this is going to sound strange to you. I read the book. I got so many copies of that book. I passed the book around to everybody I knew. If I was on the bus, I'd pass it out to people. And when I heard that there was going to be a movie, I started talking it up for myself. I didn't know Quincy Jones or Steven Spielberg or how on earth I would get in this movie. I'd never acted in my life, but I felt it so intensely that I had to be a part of that movie. I really do believe I created it for myself. I wanted it more than anything in the world and would have done anything to do it. Anything to do it. The most powerful scene in The Color Purple for me was a scene where Sophia walks through the cornfield and proclaims herself to Celie, defines and proclaims herself, where she says, all my life I had to fight. I had to fight my cousins, I had to fight my brothers, I had to fight my uncles, but I never thought I had to fight my own house. I did that scene in one take because it was the essence, I thought, of my life. And very liberating to live it through Sophia, because at the time that I spoke it, I wasn't there yet. Because what she is saying is, I fought people all my life, and I'm not going to fight in my own house anymore, in my own space anymore. I'm going to have what I deserve. And it's taken me a while to get to where Sophia was, but it was so liberating. It was all, I think, a part of the process of growth for me to recognize it can be done. I was raised on a farm with my grandmother for the first 6 years of my life. I knew somehow that my life would be different and it would be better. I never had a clear-cut vision of what it was I would be doing. I just always felt somehow. I remember absolutely physically feeling it at around 4 years old. I remember standing on the back porch. It was a screened-in porch, and my grandmother was boiling clothes because, you know, at that time we didn't have washing machines, and so people would, you know, physically boil clothes in a great big iron pot, and she was boiling clothes and poking them down. And I was watching her from the back porch, and I was 4 years old, and I remember thinking, my life won't be like this. My life won't be like this. It will be better. And it wasn't from a place of arrogance. It was just a place of knowing that things could be different for me somehow. I don't know what made me think that. I always wanted to be an actress for most of my adolescent and adult life. My father didn't want me to be, because his idea of what an actress was one of these, you know, lewd women, and how are you going to take care of your life? So I always wanted to be an actress, and have taken, I think, a roundabout way to get there, because I still don't feel fulfilled as an actress. I still feel like, okay, I own my own studio and all this, but I'm thinking, I did all of this just to be an actress. I just want to be able to act. For a while, I wanted to be a school teacher. In the 4th grade, Mrs. Duncan was my greatest inspiration. In the 4th grade is when I first, I think, began to believe in myself. I, for the first time, believed that I could do almost anything. I felt I was the queen bee. I felt I could control the world. I was going to be a missionary. I was going to Costa Rica. I used to collect money on the playground to take to church on Sundays from all the other kids. And at the time in schools we had devotions, and I would sit and I would listen to everything the preacher said on Sunday, and go back to school on Monday morning and beg Miss Duncan to please let me do the devotion, just sort of repeat the sermon. So in the 4th grade I was called preacher. Kids used to poke fun of me all the time. It didn't bother me because I was so inspired at the time. And a lot of it was because of Ms. Duncan. Mrs. Duncan, Mrs. Duncan. And we did a show not too long ago, and I had favorite teachers on. I just broke down because, first of all, it was the first time I realized Ms. Duncan had a name other than Ms. Duncan. You know, your teachers never have names. I thought her name's Mary. I couldn't believe it. Well, I was born, as I said, in rural Mississippi in 1954, and I was born at home. And there were not a lot of educated people around, and my name had been chosen from the Bible. My Aunt Ida had chosen the name, but nobody really knew how to spell it. So it went down as Orpah on my birth certificate, but people didn't know how to pronounce it. So they put the P before the R in every place else other than the birth certificate. So on the birth certificate it is Orpah, but then it got translated to Oprah, and so here we are. But that's great because Oprah spells Harpo backwards. I don't know what Oprah spells, so.